We want to do something that has never been done before us. We want to teach you the Sicilian triumph. What the Sicilians think of when they think triumph. The most important thing in Sicily is mechanisms of fulfillment and circumstances of training. So what we want to do is go from beginning to end of the Sicilian triumph and become what they call the Don. Our film is about the second religion of Sicily. It's about how to be at the top of the mountain. As you can see, we're in the real Palermo, not the Palermo that is shown to the tourists. Let's take any nation. Any nation has two religions, one of which says you have to be humble and not think about the power. The power will be given by God to the ones that are worthy. It says that, God chooses the person to be the Tsar and other things of that nature. But the funny thing is that the human nature, it doesn't agree with that. Human nature, it wants to drive a good car, good expensive car. It wants to eat good food. Also to dress well. Well, it doesn't want to be worse than everybody else. And the second religion, it exists with all the nations of the world. It exists. And that religion is about how to be at the top of that mountain and to push everybody else down. And there are two ways to be at the top of the mountain, either to share what has been already created or to create your own. We're not going to talk about the religion of how to climb the mountain and push everybody else down. We're going to talk about how to become so high that you're unreachable. So the reason why I wanted to start our conversation from this church is because this church has been handed down from hands to hands. We will go inside, you will see symbols of many different nations. It has been destroyed and reconstructed, and many different nations wanted to make it their own. There are not many churches like that here in Sicily. As me and Alex saw in Greece, where most of the churches have been brutally fought for.
Где вот это вот все как бы происходило.
The reason that I chose this church is because it's the great example of that king of the mountain. This church has been won over and transferred from Muslims to Greeks, to Normans and so forth and so on. I'm talking with you in terms of the traditional history so that you can understand better. As you can see, the mosaic has been knocked off by hammers, as you can see here. As you can see, they used hammers to knock off the crown that was there. That will always happen to the ones who try to reach the top by knocking the other ones down. If you remember, there's a saying that goes, if you wait long enough, the body of your opponent will float by in the river. That saying is for slaves. Slaves are the ones who never change their level of preparation. They're always on the same level. But the lords can move their level of preparation up or down. Slaves are always at the same level, but lords can either go all the way up or down below slaves. There is such an effect to where whenever you're pushed off the mountain, you fall so far down, you fall below the slaves. To reach glory the right way, you have to understand the concepts. The first thing that the triumph starts with is levels, understanding the levels that you're on. The person doesn't have any kind of classification of the level that he's on. And so before you start climbing a mountain, you have to think, whose mountain is it? Whose classification is it? And most importantly, what was it created for? Any man-made hierarchy is created with a purpose of not letting others get to the top. But there's an illusion. And the person for some reason always thinks that there's only one mountain. The first strange thing that we're faced with is there is a certain hierarchy that has been created by somebody, and all of the people around think that that's the only hierarchy. It's not the only hierarchy. Every single one of you can create your own hierarchy, but in this case you will need certain conditions. Sicilians, they have those conditions. In reality, every house that you see here is a ship. And those are the conditions that a child is born into here. And from birth, he's acquainted with the conditions that exist on a ship. So how does the regular Sicilian comprehend this climbing of the mountain? There is a right understanding, and then there's a wrong understanding. The wrong understanding is to enter someone else's family, and then in that family raise yourself to a certain level, and then wait until you are recognized as the most strongest, smartest, and wait until you are chosen to be the head of that family. But the person may not want to wait, and he's gonna kill the head of that family and become the head of the family himself. And this could be compared to a riot on a ship. So pretty much you start a riot, you kill the captain, and you become the head of the family. At this moment, you may feel like you have gotten to the top of the mountain. But you forgot about a couple of things. First, the ship can be taken over by the same kind of idiot like you. Second problem is the ship needs to have a captain, and you have just killed a captain. So this has nothing to do with triumph. The right system is something that brings a person to becoming part of the ship God. The right system is the one that transforms you into a real captain of your own ship. But captains are not born. Captains are made, and you need special conditions for that. You know, here in real Palermo, to throw a bucket of water over the balcony, it's a regular thing. So whenever you're walking around here and you're not constantly on your guard, looking around, well, you're going to have a bucket of water thrown on you, and you're going to be like a wet chicken. So the first conclusion that can be made is that training is constant in a person's life here, whether he wants it or not want it. This allows a child to become aware from birth. All of his senses become trained, and he starts to live in a globe, not inside a cone like most people. And they don't teach people from birth that the strongest is the most right. They teach that the right is the right, the tradition and things like that is the truth. You know, you may think that you are strong and fearless, and that is good. It's a good base to becoming the ship God. But you have to consider the knowledge of the predecessors. And that is learned from your senior comrades. The elders remember things. There's such a term here, and it's called ciparoni. It's somebody who has gotten away from the business, but is a very respected person. This person had certain ranks on the ship. This person is an elderly person, around 50 years old. And he's somebody who knows people. That is a ciparoni. My friend, the owner of a hotel here, he explained to me that the most important person is the grandfather, because he knows all the stories and knows how to not allow unwanted things to happen. But how to do something, that you have to figure out on your own. The grandfather explains to you how not to make a mistake and what you should consider before doing something. And now we have conditions, but that's not enough. Now you need abilities. Here in Sicily, any tradesman has to always be ready for war 100%. And to become a captain, you have to go through a war. And here you will be pushed into this war whether you want it or not. When you're at war and you make a mistake, that's going to cost you your life. To stay alive and to win, you need tactics and strategy. When a person replaces money instead of knowledge and power instead of abilities, he becomes an idiot. Our goal is to understand that without tactics and strategy, triumph is impossible. I have been asked, what is tactics and strategy? So tactics is a way you're going to do something. Strategy is the end result and understanding what we have. Strategy is that from what comes strength. Based on this, what we have is a person who doesn't have a doctrine, who doesn't have strategy, concepts. Nothing is going to work. The strongest mechanism that exists in this world is the mechanism of doctrine. Why do we think so? Well, we talked about it many times, and here in Sicily, you can see it with your physical vision. The thing is that people think that the most expensive, the most valuable thing that they have is their life. But in Sicily, they don't think that way. Here, the price for a human life is a couple of cents. Your life becomes only valuable then when you have become something. And that's the trick. If you don't have a doctrine, when you don't have a doctrine, you get bigger and bigger, you get more land, more churches, you get more physical things, and that makes you weak because you're afraid to lose it. The doctrine is a safety mechanism that does not allow a person to get weak. If a person chose a doctrine for himself and he believes that it's the truth, then a human life, well, it's not really worth anything to him. His life is not worth anything. What's important to him is what is now and what will be. In Sicily, they believe that it's better to die in a one-on-one fight than to live as that wet chicken that is incapable of anything. When we say a strategy conception comes from the doctrine, that is the right understanding of this world. Our doctrine is postament. For the Sicilian, their doctrine is practice of that second religion. And their strategy comes from all of the knowledge of their elders. So knowledge gives birth to strategy. When we say money and power, that's equal to knowledge and abilities. So abilities is power, and money is knowledge. When a person exchanges money for knowledge and abilities for power, he becomes an idiot. But when a person has knowledge and abilities, he becomes very rich and very influential. But he doesn't do it all to become rich and successful. He does it because he took responsibility to keep order in a certain land. And the one that was able to become that Sicilian triumph, and what do we have when we say that? It's somebody who was able to become part of the ship God, or to become the Don, the head of the family. Because the one who became the Don, he must watch after the order, and to keep everything so that others can also become Dons. So how do they teach tactics here? In the base of the tactics lies the Sicilian warrior system. You ask, why is it like that? You probably never even heard of it. Well, you're right, because it's secret. When I discovered it, as you remember, when I drew the cobra, their tactics is the tactics of that snake. Now let's look at their hand-to-hand combat. It's also like a snake. All the punches are kind of twisted in. As you remember, I made videos and I showed you how it's done. All the punches are twisted in like a snake does. They always higher and lower their body. Very often they attack the growing area, the legs, the stomach. And using a knife also. Their tactics is from the bottom up, working from the bottom going up. And this kind of system gives us the strategy. You know, if you pretend like you're nobody and that you're just, you know, you're nothing, and then just go ahead and strangle everybody around. Remember the Godfather when he pretended that he's getting out of the business, and then one day he killed everybody. So that is the tactics that they have here. It's kind of like a strike on a compressed spring, like a snake compresses and springs out. And this is why in Sicily their warrior system is kept secret, but Sicily is not the only place that everything is like this. The same thing we have in Japan. We have samurais that keep their warrior system secret. Here the families keep it secret. And to get access to this secret information, you have to somehow become part of the family. And that's how you have 4 types of people that we end up with. The first type is people that have just entered into the family. They want to show to the family that they are going to be somebody, so that they're left in the family. But those type of people are incapable and they don't know anything. Those people can do only the simple tasks. They kind of turn themselves into the end of the spear. And this always has its drawbacks. And of course, after that action, he's going to be hidden away somewhere, hiding from the law. And while he's hiding from the law, the second part of his being is going to be kind of formed, and that is patience. In Sicilian tactics, patience is very important. The second type of people are people of a higher level. They professionally study the warrior system. Here they're called professional soldiers, and they solve the problems that are constantly flowing. They are organized in groups, and they're very well prepared, and they can work They're just as good at business as they are at
хорошим
war.
мастерством и, так сказать, способны как в бизнесе работать, так и на войне воевать. То есть это вот такая вот двойная многофункциональность.
The third level is their commanders. The third level are people who are able to control those groups of professional soldiers. The next level are people that are intellectual people. People who are able to plan strategy, plan tactics, and strategy concepts. Those are the consultants. And of course, the head of the snake is the Don. It's the person who is in charge of the ship. Inside the family, there are such conditions that allow a person to solve problems of any difficult level. So any Sicilian understands that he is just one, and nobody is going to do anything to help him or for him. So he understands he needs somebody to consult with in order to make the right choices. For that, he has special people that he goes to. That's the consultation level. And then there's people like the old grandpas, the ciparoni, that they go to and they describe to them and draw for them the strategy concepts. The level that is the soldier level, there a person has to train himself. You know, if you remember in the beginning how we spoke about when he becomes a child and he has to look around everywhere so people don't pour water on him. So he trains himself from day-to-day life, you know, with weapons and hand-to-hand fighting also. And you know, on this level, strength is something that's very important. And that's when the elders become available to help him and to teach him some tricks. And then the simple task, as you remember, you know, he does that simple action and then he has to go away and hide. So when we say about tactics and strategy, they have all the conditions here that allow a person to fulfill everything. But where does that tactics and strategy come from? Who decides on it? The doctrine, it frees a person from fear, it frees a person from pain, from the future. It's the most powerful machine that exists. So from here we can make a conclusion. If this machine of doctrine has been constructed using constructors that know what they're doing, and it answers to the criteria of RPTK 1 Rastrup, which says it's useful in any situation, it works, it brings good to this world, and it can be proven. And the doctrine itself actually is the RPTK Rastrup that me and you guys have been learning about. And in this case, a person becomes stronger than the strongest person out there because he has the need to solve tasks. He has the need for tactics and strategy. He gets the need for knowledge and for his abilities to grow. And at this point, he realizes that he has to watch out so that money doesn't replace knowledge, and power didn't replace the abilities. And all of this needs changing. A person that wants to reach triumph, he has to be ready for all this. And he must know exactly how he's going to do it all. My mentor, Polish, said that a person changes himself using 4 steps. First step is classification. Then he needs the tactics, and then he needs the tools that are going to allow to fulfill that tactic. And at the end, you get the transformed person. So that is the algorithm of change that a person puts inside himself. And if you look here in Sicily, everything is built based on this algorithm. So look, the classification is given to you by the consultants. Then we go a level lower, and the commanders, they give you tactics. Then we go down to the soldiers, and those teach you mechanisms and tricks. This is the only way a person becomes part of the family and starts his way to the triumph. The interesting thing is, the Sicilian way is exactly the same as in Venice, which one of our next films is going to be about. The Venice system that lies in the base of the Sicilian system, it's identical. My mentor taught to me the same exact things. So the conditions are different, but the system is exactly the same. Of course, you by yourself can become somebody, but if you need a command that's gonna be on the ship with you, you need to have a garden, because when you have one tree standing by itself, they usually chop that tree down. But a garden, a whole garden is usually protected by someone. If you remember, before we came here, we were in the garden of pomegranates, and that is a symbol of what I'm talking about, and that's here in Sicily. The conditions of a garden, the rules and regulations that exist there, that is the second religion of Sicily. And it's the base of the tactics and strategy that allow a person to become a triumph. So whether the person is going to reach the top of the mountain or not, it depends on the soil that he's planted into. If you look at Europe and Sicily, they're on the same continent, but the soil is different and the results are different. A Sicilian is different. He doesn't want for somebody to do anything for him. He wants to do it all himself. Do we have people like that in Europe? Well, yes, of course. If we didn't have people like that, then we wouldn't have Freud or Jung or the Einstein that you know. There wouldn't be the scientists, because Germany and Austria are keepers of the mathematics, philosophy. So of course those type of people did exist. They wanted to do everything themselves. But it disappeared. And where did it go? Here in Sicily, it didn't go anywhere, as you can see. Keeping all that in mind, there's still a condition that you need to follow to come to the top of the mountain. If we don't structure our life so that day to day we're able to learn tactics and strategy from a day-to-day life, then triumph is impossible. We wanted to start and go through the whole technology of triumph from A to the dawn. In Sicily, the most important thing is mechanisms of task fulfillment and the conditions that a person is raised in. You can become the Don of Palermo, you don't have to be Don of Corleone. So when we speak about the base of tactics, tactics can be two types of tactics. You know, for a person, before he does something, he needs to understand how that something needs to be done or how it's done. If we have that system of consultants and elders, then I would be faster than others to understanding how to do something. And there's no recipes for success. There are principles, mechanisms, and tricks. But the thing is that you're fully responsible as into how you're going to use all of that. So you kind of turn yourself into a research structure. So you have to kind of research all this from day-to-day life to understand what is going to be better for you. Because something that works for one person doesn't always work for the next. So again, where do we get those principles and those tricks? So if we don't have that system in place of the mentors, the elders, the soldiers, and commanders, then there's no one we can get those mechanisms from. If you don't have Ciparoni, you don't have knowledge. In that case, life becomes a chase after power and money. life without doctrine means life without principles, strategy, and tactics. So where do we get the principles? In doctrine, right? If you're given a doctrine, then you already have all the principles. Where do we get the mechanisms of task solving? The commanders. Because that's why they're commanders of the ships, because they know of the mechanisms of task solving more than anybody else. The soldiers explain how to work with certain tools, and that's how the system is put into place. So the consultants have the principles. The commanders have the mechanisms that solve problems. Soldiers teach you how to work with certain tools. So if I don't have all of this in my life, then there's nothing I'm going to be able to reach. This system is kept stable until the people stay on the levels that are equal to their level of preparation. In order to constantly keep growing up in the system, every single person in the system has to have access to the most effective machines of tactics. A person must have a full diapason system in their system of tactics, because that's the strongest system of tactics. And here's the symbol of it on the left, as you can see. Here are 4 things that can happen. That's why, by looking at this, we can understand that the commanders are the high-ranking here, because they have the machine of tactics. They have the systems that solve problems. This brings us to the conclusion that the most important are the conditions and the machines that solve problems. So in the beginning I described all the things that are needed, and now we're going to start and go through the whole system. Go from the start to the end and become that Don of Corleone. Well, we can become a Don of Palermo, it doesn't have to be Corleone. During wartime, a person learns very quickly. He becomes a soldier, and then he becomes a commander, and after that he becomes the Don. So let's look how to start. How does a regular person start? There are 2 states of being, either in war or in peace. Before, the easiest way was to be raised in certain conditions and then go ahead and sail on your way. So war, that's the easiest way to start.
At war, a person learns really fast.
So being at war, plus the death that's always following you around, a person learns really fast. When a person enters the family, first thing he has to do is learn how to walk. So what does that mean, to learn to walk? To learn to walk means to learn how to use this system. The system that will bring you to reach the top. If you remember, on the first step, a person has to be ready to do things. So he comes as some kind of an underhand, and then becomes the soldier. Then he becomes the consultant, and after that, the Don. At war, the rise of the vertical hierarchy happens fast for a person. In times of peace, it's kind of harder. You either have to become part of a family, or you have to teach yourself to become the ship god. Most Sicilians think that the best way is to become part of the family and then rise yourself up by the hierarchy. If he enters a family that has this hierarchy, then to a certain age, he becomes self-efficient. he learns to walk, then he learns how to be coordinated. We're going to talk separately about coordination. He learns really fast and he gets the needed skills really fast to show everybody that he by himself can reach good results. When we're talking about in the Sicilian way, when they're learning how to walk, they're learning how to use this system. So as you guys can see all over the place, you see this three-stage system that's all over Sicily. In front of the Norman castle, you'll see this ship god symbol. The fountain of shame is also a three-level system. That fountain symbolizes that system of commanders, soldiers, and consultants. As soon as you're part of that system and you're able to use any level to teach yourself, very soon you become a person that is capable and able to walk. You become somebody who can make decisions on his own and reach results on his own. This type of person starts to attract other people. Then he formulates a certain group, and then you get the ship god. And only after this you construct the ship or the family or any other system that a captain is the head of. The hierarchy of that ship allows a person from the bottom to become the captain of the ship. System that teaches, system that is your own, and system that makes changes. And that is the Sicilian triumph. If you don't have those things, then triumph is impossible. If you do have them, then it's unquestionable.